we come to our next panel. But Michael and me, we have a surprise for you, because this panel will neither be led by him nor by myself. So for this panel, we're going to invite a very special guest to us and to come to the stage. And he is the director of R&D and design at the HDM, which is our daughter company. He's a graduated biotechnologist, and he was also working in innovation fermentation as a manager, but this was already quite a while ago. In the last 10 years, he had multiple successful product launches, and now he is here with us to lead the next panel.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm welcome for Tobias Lohmüller. Cheers.
Hello together. This is really disruptive technology, what we just heard. So if you are going to make the first espresso machine out of this, I want to have it, since I'm sure we could extract even things out of it which makes it even better or even tasting different. And this might lead us to our talk later. So maybe we need this kind of disruptive technology to bring alternative coffee to a flavor like coffee. So first of all, I want to thank you that you participate and that you show interest on this specific topic. Looking on the coffee history, we see that in the 1800s, we started to talk about coffee commercialization. So a lot of rich people got coffee. Not so rich people, they had some problems to get coffee because they didn't have so much money. So they looked already for alternatives. However, it was booming. People could afford finally coffee. In the 1960s, we had a second trend, what we can define. We talked about quality. We talked about social experience linked to that. And when we talk then about the third wave, it was then the early 20s, or the 1919, early 20s. We talked about artisan. And we talk about origin coffee, so we are talking still today about that. And we started about sustainability. We spoke there about sustainability already. And the last mega trend, what I could read, was then 2015. We talked about specializing, commercializing specialties. So again, this is of course very interesting. And I think when we look on these four trends, what I just said, maybe this topic today might be a glance on the fifth trend, and I hope so that it is like that, because we would be the first really pointing this out. And I'm happy to have now my participants. I'm going to call them upstairs. It will be Andy Kleitsch from Atomo Coffee. Please stand up. He's the CEO of this company. He's doing alternative coffee. Take a seat. And now we have David Klingen. Please come up. Take as well a seat. He is as well a CEO. Is for Northern Wonders. And finally, we have Heiko Rischer from VTT. He's a scientist. So again, here, someone who is really talking about reinventing maybe the coffee bean. So we don't talk about alternatives. We are talking about reinventing. So great that you are here.
Thanks for having us.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And we had so inspiring talk. And we are maybe not disruptive, but we are the trendsetter for the future.
We were upstaged by lasers, totally. Like I thought we were going to be the most radical thing here, and we're not even the most radical thing here. Yeah, exactly.
Since yesterday, we know it, that there might pop up something. But talking about our technology or our idea, I want first that you maybe give a little insight from yourself why you are talking about coffee and why you are talking or why you are interested on the topic today about alternative coffee or reinventing coffee. Maybe Andy, you are starting and we go just the line.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Andy Kleitsch. I'm the CEO of Atomo Coffee. Atomo, we are reinventing coffee at a molecular level. So actually recreating every experience you would expect around coffee, the color, the taste, the mouthfeel, the bioactives, the caffeine, really recreating the entire experience of coffee from upcycled ingredients. And I started this project 4 years ago. I actually had my own kind of like midlife crisis where I decided I've been doing software development and doing startups for 25 years out of Seattle, Washington, and seen Starbucks kind of grow up there as, you know, as a Seattleite. And I wanted to pursue something that was better for the planet. So I actually started interviewing all my friends, saying, what were their ideas and how could I do something that would be better for the planet? And one of my food chemist friends said, we should remake coffee, like make coffee without the bean. And 4 years ago, this was a pretty radical idea, right? So we set forth to do that in his garage. And it's been a long journey. I'm happy to share more about it. But effectively, over the last 4 years, we have really started in a garage in Seattle, built a laboratory, and now we have 3 factories we're building right now, where we're building cold brew coffee, hot coffee, and upcycling ingredients for that purpose. So it's been a long journey. But last thing I'll say is, it's this 4 years in the coffee industry, and I feel like I wasted the first 25 years of my career doing software development, because coffee is so much more fun than software, and I just love the culture and the people that are in this industry and the passion behind it. So I'm just so happy to be a part of the coffee community.
Thank you. This was really inspiring. So, but we have someone else which is also passionate.
I was not in software. I used to be a sustainability manager for big retailers, global players. But after yesterday's talk, I maybe should introduce it as a greenwashing manager. And I worked in all sustainability topics which popped up. That is this, we talked 15 years ago. And I did a lot in meat issues there. But coffee, tea, cocoa were always pressing issues. And I've been working a lot on these roundtable initiatives and all the certification schemes. And I felt I contribute. But at some moment, I got a little cynical about the real change it could make, because it is often incremental change. We talk about it a lot also here today and yesterday. And I, as a person, personally, I like to have it more radical, and incremental changes is not making a big difference. And today, and what's motivating me to make coffee without the bean, is that coffee is more and more a driver of deforestation. It has a footprint which is having an impact in a negative way. And I like to work not on making coffee better, but I want to work on making coffee without the bean, like meat replacers. They're not working on making meat more sustainable, treating animals better. No, they make alternative meats, vegetarian stuff. That's what we do. We make coffee without the bean, and I believe that is a truly impactful thing to do. So that motivates me every day to work on this project.
Great, thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So along the lines here, I also didn't have a career in coffee whatsoever. So my background is a scientific career based on biology in the first place, then moving into natural product chemistry for a while, and finally ending up in a research institute where I'm still now, where we're working on biotechnology. And in the frame of this, I'm heading the research of plant biotechnology over there. But as such, biotechnology is basically concerned lately a lot with so-called cellular agriculture. And what cellular agriculture wants to do is actually to produce commodities which are traditionally produced with agricultural means, right? But not on the field or by animals or anything like that, but with cellular systems. So meaning it's kind of brewing, beer brewing, yeah. So imagine, for example, a brewery for beer. You have these big tanks there, and what you have in there is an organism, the yeast, and then you have malt, carbon source basically, and some other, let's say, minerals and so on, and you produce the beer with that system. So basically the same thing has been done lately, for example, with animal cells. You have all heard about the lab-grown meat, for example, has come a long way from being a very expensive technology already to almost affordable technology. There are even first commercial operations in Singapore, for example, offering this kind of product. Similarly, we have seen a huge development already on the protein production with microbes. We have, for example, at VTT, a couple spin-offs already Some of them, they're working in the production of milk proteins, for example. So you talk about milk without a cow, or the same goes for egg protein. So this is all very advanced, and of course, with the cellular agricultural principle, you can use all kind of organisms. So what we want to do in the plant biotech is actually utilizing plant cells to do similar things. And that was then the point where we actually came to the coffee and thought, okay, let's look into that and try to actually brew the coffee, but not pouring hot water over the coffee in the end, but in the beginning actually to generate the raw material. So basically the idea is to get a raw material corresponding to the green bean, basically in the traditional process, but with biotechnological means. So that's basically the concept, and that's where we are. So we did the proof of concept exercise because we wanted to go through the whole process. But this is, of course, by no means optimized at all, but it really got a huge resonance all over the place. And the next phase is to commercialize this.
Thank you, Heiko. You just put us for the biotechnology last 50 years, and so
Big
within,
review.
I think, 2 minutes. So no, many thanks for giving this insight. We talked about a lot about sustainability at the end of the day, and you pointed this out already. When we are honest, and we learned yesterday we should be honest somehow, provocative questions, because I cannot calculate it and I cannot give a number on it, but when you are looking about alternatives on coffee, you are looking, of course, a regional crop and byproducts or side streams, I assume. So your footprint should be, a CO2 footprint should be far better, or not? All of you.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, can I go again? Yeah.
You go
All right.
first.
So
Yeah,
we've calculated it that we're at 94% less water consumption than conventional coffee, 93% less carbon footprint than conventional coffee. And you would say, well, how do you do that? And we do it by using upcycled ingredients. So these are ingredients that are typically thrown away. And so the first 2 years of our existence, we just looked at stems, seeds, leaves, pits, anything that was being thrown away. I saw one of the presenters said that they had a lid that was from 65% avocado pit, things like that. Like, you can imagine there's so many waste streams out there that have, actually have value in them, have compounds that you would like to target for coffee. And so that's what we really spent most of our time doing, was taking these upcycled ingredients and then finding out, how can you react those? How can you even roast those? And that's hence why we're here at Probat. Like, even when you're looking at coffee without the bean, there's still roasting involved, because roasting is such a critical step to generating aroma and flavor that you would expect in coffee. So our approach is to take basically waste streams and give them a second life.
We are not working necessarily with waste streams only. We have one strict line, and that is we work with non-tropical ingredients. And on the sustainability aspect, we see three reasons why we exist. One is the LCA, so the footprint, is much more beneficial of a locally sourced product, not only because of food miles, but it's the ingredients we are working with are way much easier to grow and to harvest, have a much more beneficial or less harmful, one could say, footprint. That is number one. Number two is that coffee is more and more a driver of deforestation. That is because of an increased demand. The Chinese and the Indians, they are about to drink as much coffee as Western countries do. So per capita coffee consumption is on the rise, and there live apparently quite a lot of people in India and China. And Mongolia, let's add Mongolia to that to that list. No, but so increased demand it's just expanding plantations, and coffee, Arabica more than Robusta, of course, is growing in the area where the last remaining rainforest is. So that expansion goes at the expense of rainforest. That is problem one. But then on top of it, that area is actually shifting due to climate change. It's often uphill. Or geographically to different locations. So we see an expanding and moving area where coffee is grown. And that is eating its way into the last remaining rainforest. That's not in every country the case. It's very nuanced. And maybe somebody approaches me later that is not the case. In some areas, yes. In some areas, not. But I would say creating less demand is a contribution to fight deforestation. So that is another reason why we exist. And the third one is commercially probably at some point really interesting, is that it's a cheaper product, making your daily caffeine intake easier, cheaper. and in that sense more available to more people. So that's for us the 3 reasons why we are on Earth, so to say.
And biotechnology does have a better footprint?
That's a good question, and of course our approach is different. So we are not relying, let's say, on agricultural byproducts or products as such. So the only exception is that we need a sugar source for our media. So that sugar, of course, is not independently produced from agriculture, but it's coming from agriculture. So that part still is relying on agriculture. But other than that, basically what we need is electricity to drive the bioreactors. With electricity, of course, you have the big benefit that you can rely on non-fossil, so renewable electricity. So in that case, you're cutting out, of course, all the emissions. And of course, the approach we are doing so is basically ultra local. So you're basically also cutting out all the transport emissions, which are quite significant if you're carrying, let's say, the raw material around the globe.
So we are the sustainable group here.
Sorry?
We are the sustainable group
Absolutely.
here.
The radically, I would say. Yeah, like on a different way. Yeah.
But this is great. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. But now I was gentle. I was asking very easy question. But at the end of the day, I mean, taste does matter. And of course, the emotion and the look is and the feeling you talked about, mouth feeling and all the stuff. So are we? I know Caro coffee. I mean, I was getting old with Caro coffee. I wanted to drink coffee when I was young, and then you are not allowed to drink coffee. Maybe with the laser technology, I might be able later to drink coffee. But I had to wait until I was old enough, so I was drinking Caro coffee, and that's of course not the same than a good coffee. So maybe. May I, Daniel, ask you first, because you have maybe some experience with you that you just explain how you see this and what your approach is there.
There's a whole bunch of existing coffee alternatives. They are in say 95% of the cases an instant version, because that's the way it is tastier than a non-instant version. It's very niche, of course, also. Maybe nobody had that product in the last month in this audience. It is very niche. It is instant and has never caffeine. But if this amount of people drink coffee in the world, then we go first to decaf drinkers. And within decaf drinkers, instant decaf, you end up with this. And then existing coffee alternatives, they compete with this segment, instant decaf. That is, enjoy your competition, but you're in competition with my little pinky here. What we do is we add caffeine, and we say the brew type. Later on, we can taste it over there. We have capsules, we have filter great, grind. We say the brewing method should stay the same because we want to compete here. Only we work with non-tropical ingredients. But to get back to your question on flavor, it is up to people to judge. I don't say we are having 100% match with this coffee served here at this event. But this morning I woke up in a hotel. I will not name the name, but the coffee I had in the hotel. Well, it's up to the people who were in the same hotel to judge if we are close to that coffee. I would say we are able to make bad coffee already.
So the hotel had quality bad coffee.
And then, if I may, in 30 seconds, may add. So we can make bad coffee, but it's an ongoing process. I'm saying not we are going to sell bad coffee to the world made from non-tropical ingredients. We are an R&D-minded company working towards 100% match of really nice tasting coffee. But that's a journey. It might take 5 years, maybe 10 years. Maybe we learn from each other's technologies, integrate that. But I like to have people join us on that mission with coffee, which is already coffee-like. And if you add milk, you don't taste the difference already.
Wow, that sounds great. I got it right. After the next talk, you make the barista?
I have 15 cups for 15 lucky people who are in the front. It is a lesson in marketing to create some scarcity, but it's also it is also a little bit. You should see it as the cultured meat burger of what was it, 400,000 euros at some point in the media. It is. We're an R&D company, and I brought some stuff from the lab. One could say.
Heiko, did you taste your stuff already, or is it simply theory?
I did, in fact. So although we don't have a product, I mean, this is wholly on an experimental level at the moment, and that also limits, for example, how we can offer it even to a public audience, which is not allowed because this is limited by the novel food regulation we have in Europe. But nevertheless, of course, it was very important for us to actually compare to standard coffee. And so we had a sensory evaluation panel organized in our labs. Needed a special permit from the ethical committee actually to even do that. But of course, we characterized to accepted standards the flavor and the taste with panel members. And additionally, we did also chemical analysis to some degree to see how close it comes. And I have to say, it comes pretty close already in the first hit, although not optimized, and although we are not coffee experts whatsoever. For example, the whole roasting exercise, it was pretty simply done in an oven, so very primitive. But nevertheless, we're pretty close, and it was very clear that this was a coffee.
So maybe we put this as well to the disrupting technology later, because then we don't need forests anymore and trees. And we don't talk about differentiation, what you can still do with your but now, Andy, you are the oldest, no? I think.
Yeah.
So
it's taken us so we're into it 4 years now so far. Okay, so the first couple of years we really just spent in the laboratory trying to understand how to generate coffee aroma, coffee flavor, and sure, we created plenty of bad coffee, in that period. In fact, there was one that tasted like a green bean, like a green chili, kind of like. Anyway, so there was a lot of experimenting going on. But over the last year and a half, we've made a ton of improvements on how to create a retort cold brew. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with when you put cold brew into a can and retort it, that heat process degrades the coffee and creates a less than optimal experience for that coffee when it's in a can. And what we have been able to do is formulate our coffee, so when we put it into the can and retort it, it actually comes out tasting better after the retort experience, which is something that we're uniquely qualified to do because we can, absolutely adjust what we put into that beverage. So we have been taking this can and actually doing blind taste tests. We hired an independent third party to conduct a blind taste test with 100 consumers in California, in San Francisco. And they did not tell the tasters that it was coffee without the bean. They just said, here are a set of 6 different cold brews. And the users tasted all the cold brews, and our 2 cold brews actually beat all the competition. And these are the biggest brands in the market. So I think what we've proven is that you can actually create a great tasting cold brew from ingredients that are not coffee, and that consumers actually can't taste a difference in that process.
Wow. So when we classify the coffee market, we learned just recently $20 billion is coming from the farmer level. Then I think retailer is roughly said $80 billion, and for the total market, I would say $220 billion. It's based on standard, premium, and specialties. So I will ask Heiko, where are you positionate your product? Is it a standard, or will it be a specialty at the end of the day?
Well, that's the big question, and with biotech approaches, we have always the issue with economics of scaling, right? So I mean, when we start off with any process, biotechnological process, so we're obviously operating at a small scale, and then actually to extrapolate from the small scale to the big scale, that's a big issue. So I mean, we are pretty early stage in all this. So I mean, we have been running a couple 100 liters, for example, bioreactors. So that's, let's say, small pilot scale, I would say. And of course, it's far away from industrial scales. But I mean, the issue is with this technology, we're not talking about novel technology. So this is established technology. And also, let's say, the bioreactors and so on, they are commercially available. So, I mean, they're also commercially run plant cell processes in 75,000 liter scales. So that's all existing. So basically, you have to get the pieces together and optimize the processes, obviously, first of all. And that's all not yet done, but in progress.
But who is invest? I mean, you are a researcher now. You need, of course, an investor, no? Somehow.
Yeah. So we are not really working with investors. We're a project-based organization. So we need projects, and as such, we're doing, of course, publicly funded projects. That's one way, but specifically here, we work with industrial partners in projects. And of course, I cannot go into detail who's working with us and so on, but I can say that we have clients which are basically startups, so few people starting something off and having investor money, of course. But then on the other end of the scale, we have the multinational companies in the business who are also waking up and looking into this seriously. But remains to be seen who is the first one to make it, because I mean, this is, if it becomes a reality and if there are commercial products to be developed, so that will be really a disruptive technology. And you really have to think about it, because it is a completely different business mindset here, so and a business model basically, because you're taking actually the production of the raw material into your own hands, and not sourcing the raw material, let's say, on a market or something like that. So yeah.
So it's not clear now if it's a standard or a premium or maybe.
Probably it starts smaller, obviously, and of course it has to do also, of course, a lot with consumer acceptance. We only did some initial studies there, so how people would actually accept this kind of technology, but we were very positively surprised, because we had bad experience from earlier times with GM debate and stuff like that. A lot of things are not accepted on plant biotech, but this one was taken very well, and especially younger generation is very open-minded taking this up.
Cool.
And I mean, getting rid of the bad conscience when drinking a coffee, I think that's a big deal, right?
That's cool. Andy, where are you positioning your is this a specialty? Is this?
Yeah, we're absolutely. So it's a big debate we have internally, and we just had this big debate last week, which was, we're releasing our hot coffee in a very limited amount at the end of the year. So imagine this. This is when you talk about making coffee in a lab. Like at the end of the year, we'll be doing 100 cups of hot coffee a day, right? That's going to be big for us, in our lab. And there's a big argument. What kind of coffee should this be? The 100 cups. Should it be something that is what we called a workhorse? Something that's like a blend that would be a top seller? Or should it be a show pony, which is something that would score very high by a Q grader, but maybe is not approached by the average consumer very often? And so it's my belief that we absolutely have to kind of knock the socks off of the critical comrades out there, the people in the coffee industry who are really going to be, and rightfully so, judgmental about what we're doing. I think it's up to us to show that we can create a high quality coffee. And so, it's my desire that the first 100 are going to be what we call the show pony, and that is going to, be a high scoring, high graded coffee. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if we can achieve that. And I think we're getting close.
Okay.
A question on positioning?
Yeah,
or,
exactly, yeah.
It is interesting to look to the alt meat, so meat replacer world. You have economies of scale, a lack of economies of scale there. We will also have that. And the first group of consumers who will pick up this product is the sort of dark green consumer, next to interested, tech-savvy, coffee nerd kind of people. But the purchases will be green thinking driven in a way. This target group tends to have money, and they're also willing to pay a little bit extra, and they will support us in the lack of economies of scale, so to say. So we will position the product in not the highest, but a little bit below, but pretty expensive coffee, knowing that if shit hits the fan in either supply chain disruptions in coffee or the coffee rust or any other scarcity issues, cost price wise, we are cheap, and you can always lower the price. That's easier than raising the price. So we start here, green consumer, and then we feel we can go there, just like with the alt meat world. So that is how we position it. But for us, most important, at least for the start, is to create a community. We say, hey, try this product, follow us, join us on our mission, and we are working towards 100% match of your daily brew. And I'm curious to learn how far you think we are. So we start with only sales direct to consumer. So no retailers involved, only via our own website, to really build that community and to kickstart that customer feedback loop, to learn from people. But it's we're going to do a PR campaign, and the call to action for those who are reading about us is not subscribe to our newsletter and follow us, but the call to action is try the first product. We ship it to your home, and that's what we're going to do. Anytime soon, you will hear about it.
Very good. I'm looking forward to it. Heiko, your stuff has caffeine inside. Caffeine inside.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the common thing here is that we're concerned with how to generate the raw material, but that's where the similarities end, right? So we are working 100% on coffee, so it's coffee plant cells actually. And so we were very curious to see, is there actually caffeine produced? And indeed, we see it produced, not to the level we have it normally in conventional coffee at this point. So as said, non-optimized whatsoever. But for us, it was very important to see that actually the biosynthetic pathways were actually active. So you can work on that and try to increase with certain parameter changes the levels, or decrease it as you wish.
So you have your bioactive molecules. Andy, you didn't tell, but do you add caffeine too, or I'm always sleepy when I drink your stuff?
Yeah, right. Everyone, that's the first question we get all the time: is does it have caffeine? You know, and the answer is yes, it has caffeine.
Oh.
We actually, there's 60 different plants that generate caffeine. We have selected green tea caffeine right now as our caffeine source. We like that one right now, but there's of course plenty of other options that you could have in your caffeine selection. And there was one thing you mentioned a minute ago about the size of this market that I just wanted to comment on really quick, because I've heard it kind of repeatedly over the last few days, where people are like, coffee is this huge industry that has very little research being done, or it's a huge industry that is almost underserved in many ways, in academia and otherwise. And what my investors are very heavy investors in the alternative meat sector, like you were talking about. Like there's such an investment that went into alternative meat. And when my investors look at the beef industry compared to the coffee industry, their assessment is that the coffee industry is far larger than the beef industry. And all the funds that have gone into alternative meats, when you look at the kind of returns that have been generated from that they see alternative coffee as even a larger opportunity than alternative meats.
Yeah, David just told, I mean, the market is growing. The coffee is loved everywhere now. And so the next question is, of course, in 10 years, are we serving more the alternative coffees in the common area where we are used to drink coffee, or are we serving more into the new coming market with coffee? Because you're entering the market on a already positioned.
Yeah. That is, I think in Asia in particular, there's an interesting opportunity for our product, as there is less reference products. So in the Netherlands, where I'm from the Netherlands, people have something in their minds and they will automatically do a reference. If the people who will have a cup, you will think of, you go automatically in your reference mode. But if you're new to coffee and you just had 20 coffees in your life and you drink our product, then you're just happy with the experience because it is a nice brown warm drink and you can do the latte art and all that. You have the experience. And most importantly, eventually, I see myself as a seller of caffeine, of a drug, if you want to put it a little bit bold. I sell drugs to people, and I pack it in a nice brown, warm drink. You're all addicted to caffeine, and I bring it to you in a different way.
The dealer.
So the reference product is less an issue in Asia, so there's an opportunity there.
So you're looking as well on this market then.
We are an R&D company, we do gonna sell a little bit. It's not for fun. And if it's a big hit, then we are commercially active, and we're ready for that in that sense. But it is step by step, and it takes time to get to a real coffee product, and to be able to scale it, and to have it in all brew methods available, step by step.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm like against the coffee industry. How maybe if I was an alt meat producer and you were the meat industry, I was against you. I'm not against the coffee industry. I just think it's gonna be one of the one of the building blocks to the future, and it's greening that sector in some way. So,
but your philosophy clearly said no blend with coffee to make it more coffee related, and no 50-50. It's really without any.
No. In that sense, I'm the alt meat guy. I don't make a meat replacer with a little bit of meat. I have a very clear message. Our product is made from non-tropical ingredients. Zero contribution to any deforestation.
Okay.
And that's that is the key statement.
Andy.
Yeah, as far as like how large could this industry get, or this segment of the industry, it is driven by the consumer, right? So are the customers asking for this product? And I think that we can both say, like, we have been overwhelmed with like positive response from the early adopters, right? Like you mentioned, there's the green early adopters, there's the technology early adopters, but there's also the news media and the publications that have covered our companies, and what we've seen is there's extreme interest from especially the younger population, and actually it's across every market segment. So if you look at like 65-year-olds and 50-year-olds and 40-year-olds, they all have a green segment to them that is really responding proactively to this, product. So, but I guess my rhetorical question would be, do the consumers want products that are better for the planet? And the answer is clearly yes. And what we've seen is, are consumers willing to pay more for those products? And the answer is clearly yes. And so, us as a coffee industry, and I like to consider myself part of the coffee industry because of the warmness and the openness that the industry has had, like just in general. I just really want to, be a part of that. So I would just say, like, this industry as a whole all of us have the opportunity to put a more sustainable product in front of a consumer and deliver the same coffee experience that they want today.
Well, that's the statement. I think that the idea would be, the ideal situation would be, of course, that you are then participating on the coffee wave, and that you are not doing an own business. So, you want to enlarge the portfolio of the coffee, if I'm correct, or are you really saying we will do this as a separate business?
I mean, probably all of us up here have a similar problem, which is around scaling our products, right? So we looked really seriously at, do we want to white label our product? But then we realized we cannot create enough product for Nestle or Starbucks or anyone else, right? We can only create such a small amount right now that we have to basically release it under our own brand. And I'm sure that's familiar with all of us, right? We're starting small. And in our particular business, because we're using such novel techniques and approaches, we have to build our own factories. And so how fast can you scale up factory? It takes years.
Yep,
So I would just say, like, maybe, are you facing a similar challenge?
It is, we have multiple lines of products, development direction, so to say. And yes, we have stainless steel stuff at home. And it was first on a lab scale, and now we're moving one step further. But ideally, it is either an easy-to-scale technique, decentralized, applicable technique, or, and that is also, we are here at Probat invited, I think, like players like Probat might still be relevant if we became really big. And the coffee infrastructure is really good in basically creating a Maillard reaction, and that is, pretty sure needed. Maybe it's different, not a batch process. Maybe there's other techniques. We're exploring a lot of crazy stuff, But I
And
think
lasers now too. By the way.
lasers, new on the
totally.
list,
We're onto
yeah.
this.
It's music, it's
But
fun.
ideally, I make use of existing infrastructure if it becomes really big.
Okay.
But I face, just like you, a lot of challenges, and there are some people here in the room who know about my challenges. It is very difficult because the world of coffee is already complicated, and I come with 8 new different ingredients, at least in that first release, all with different characteristics in terms of everything.
When I was heard that we are going to make this nice talk, I was always thinking, you come up on the stage and say, in 10 years I want to have 20% market share, because I have local ingredients, I have a good story behind, I'm good for the environment, I can scale up my product. As now I mean, certainly I don't know your byproduct, or I'm not going to name it. So that means that is of course scalable until a certain limit, but from the bioreactor topic there is no limit. So there was always the question, you start with the specialty because you get better margin to make more R&D, but later you are going to enter most likely as well the big...
I don't position it necessarily as a specialty.
Okay.
We will differentiate, we will do crazy stuff, and it's also that the first release is maybe a lot of people like maybe the flavor of that first release. We come with the second release, we're proud, we had our champagne. This is way much better. But that first one, we keep that in the market for those who like that flavor profile. And we have a whole, the spectrum of doing funky stuff that lays ahead. We can do a lot of stuff, but we are like making something coffee-like is a task difficult enough. I can work for 5 years on just making coffee, create that room fillingness, as we call it. My wife is brewing downstairs coffee. I'm upstairs. I'm triggered by the smell, and I also go down. That, for example, that room fillingness, that volatiles, is something difficult to mimic, and you can work for 5 or 10 years on that, and I'm looking forward to do that. Meanwhile, I sell, and maybe a lot. Yeah.
Sounds good.
But can I answer this one too? Because I actually kind of am a coffee snob now after being in this business for 4 years and going through roasting classes and Q grading classes and really trying to educate myself about why coffee is so great. And now I cannot release a product that I don't want to drink myself. Right? And so for me, this is why it's so important to have this high-end, stone fruit, something that's really layered in depth and complexity. That is so important to me as a consumer that we must replicate that. And then there must be a daily driver that people can drink and add cream and sugar to, and that can satisfy them for their daily needs as well.
Time is running, so and we don't want to take away hours or minutes for the next speaker. So I wrap up. First of all, many thanks for being here. It's great. We have 2 products already on the market, what I just heard. We will have the chance of 15 cups. And so, but not yet. Please wait until the next speaker is there, and then we will find a way.
Yeah, I will serve 15 cups for 15 lucky ones.
Exactly.
Over here. Yeah.
So and they have to communicate, of course, how it was tasting.
Yeah, they
have
I will look to faces, and it will be.
Okay, and then we have one. Also the good thing is here clearly there are technologies available to say, okay, we can of course brew something which is tasting like coffee, which makes the same emotion with a far better CO footprint, which with social responsibility, all the stuff, because it's very close by. Also that's what you just told me, and we know that there is a disruptive technology which is not so disruptive, but for the coffee industry, by saying, okay, if you want to scale it, then you scale it. And I say many thanks for the participation. It was so great, as well the beers the day before. And I think we have to leave. Huh? Emma?
All right.
All right. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank you.